Don't hang up. Can we be friends again? I give up. I know how this ends. Might sound strange, but I'd give my life for you. Nothing's changed.
We've had 3 really good solid weeks together, almost 3 weeks. Do you have, is there any sort of highlights that you think, or you feel sort of be etched in your memory, other than spending quality time with your dearest friend?
Question without notice.
Question without notice.
Question without notice.
Discussion without notice.
It's been.
We can put these in as bloopers.
It's been enjoyable. It's been good seeing the progress on a daily basis. Some days not so much, but most days I think we achieved something and saw a change and a difference. And as you said, we had an objective, and it was a daily recap to see whether or not we thought we were going to make it or not make it, or what needed to happen and on the next day in order to get us to the finish line. But apart from that, the sleeping conditions were
3.5 stars.
I'm not even thinking it's 3.5 stars. The food was good. The one-sided tent, which felt like we were living in, was a bit of a challenge to get a good night's sleep to be ready for the next day's work, but it is what it is. But I feel like we've really achieved something.
I think what helped us was your, not only your project management, but also the discipline to make a daily list. Even as simple things as wiping the bench down, or emptying the rubbish bin, or whatever it could be. We had that list of things that we ticked off. I think that was instrumental in us achieving what we did achieve, is that we didn't get to the middle of the day or mid-morning or mid-afternoon and sort of scratch our head and say, well, what's next? Over our coffee toolbox meetings at 5 a.m. typically, some mornings 4.
Yeah.
With our walking around with our headlamps on, I think made a huge difference. Look, I think probably week 3, maybe day 2, when the wall cladding inside the patio started to go up, we started to see the change from a donga, from a set of dongas to a home, if you like.
Yeah.
So that was, and I think yesterday putting the screening up, which was day 5 of week 3, that screening was like a wow factor. We heard 9 wows from Belinda yesterday.
Yeah.
And if I just go right back, another pivotal moment, I believe, was when we actually demolished the bathrooms on day 1. We ripped the bathroom. Oh, there's a goat. When we ripped the bathrooms out on day 1, and Link started pulling the wall sheets off.
Yep.
And one last profound moment, I think, was when day 4 of week 3. I know I'm jumping around, but day 4 of week 3, which was day before yesterday, when Link nailed that kitchen and living area. He lined all the sheets, all the ceiling, put the cornice up and flushed it.
Yep.
I thought that was a huge effort by Link.
Yeah, that was a huge day. Day 5, I think getting the entire deck area walls cladded in the shadow line cladding.
The shadow line, yes.
And putting the last piece underneath the sliding door to say we'd finished it, and then you stand back and look at it. It really did make a big difference. But there was milestones almost every day. We had a plan we wanted to see done, and on most days we got it done. A couple of tradies, had other jobs to do because everyone was so damn busy, and we lost a little bit of time, a little bit of momentum when they weren't there. It was probably day 3 of week 3. We didn't have an electrician, and it's sort of that day. That day we sort of had chores to do that weren't really building or construction orientated. We had to do a bit of housework around the joint, gardens and lawns, and we lost a little bit of momentum on that day, which probably at the end of the project, at the end of the 3 weeks, was the difference between getting full lockup and we missed out by a day, really, is what we missed out by.
Yeah, so Jace from Chem Glazers promised us he'll have all that finished today, and then his last little piece of the jigsaw will be on Monday when he puts the northern end front in, because of the again the delay, because the glass got delivered incorrect size. That is what it is. Do you know something else that springs to mind? I was thinking when we were driving this morning. What I was thinking while we were driving this morning is, the condition of the trees and the condition, the dryness and the reticulation that was just not servicing the trees to what it was and what it is now. When we walked around yesterday, the base of the trees are nice lush green. We threw a bit of water on the lawns. I mean, the way that back lawn come up, it's just lawn or grass. We'll call it green grass.
Green. Well, it was green. Whatever it is, it's green.
Yeah. So
compared to brown when we got there.
Yeah. So I think that also was so milestones, absolutely, from week 1 day, probably week 1 day 3, when we sort of got into the fixing all the reticulation and getting all that sorted, to what we saw yesterday afternoon with all the sprinklers now working and finding all the leaks. So pretty good experience.
Yeah, good bunch of tradies.
Do you think we'll be able to get on Mitre 10 or 9, the block or something?
I think I'm gonna. I'd like to think we could get on the show. I doubt whether I'd turn up though. I think we could be. I think we could be a good ambassador for Mitre 10, because we spend a lot of money there. Yeah, and we've still got more to spend. Part of phase 2 is cladding the external of the building, and we're looking at a Hardy's product. I think it's called Scion.
No, not the Scion. Is it called Aria? No, I keep getting that mixed up. Tia, Trier. It's a new product. Doesn't matter. So I think, with phase 2, when we get back up, we've got linked the chip rocker of fibre cement, a fixer fella. He's committed to do that for us. Once we make the final decision on the product that we're going to clad the external of the building, we've got to get services we've got to get other trades in to relocate a lot of the services. We've got to come up with some ideas to cover up some of the air conditioning units, some sort of facade or some sort of box. So that's going to be an interesting sort of journey as far as coming up with the solutions to make it look less dongerish on the outside, because we've clearly changed the inside to, even walking through the east wing, which is the master suite wing. The doors going through, through the ensuite to the master bedroom, and or from the master bedroom through to the ensuite, through to the living area. I think that's kind of cool. And then of course you've got the Kirkham wing, which is on the west side. So we've pretty much turned a 3-bedroom, 3-bathroom set of dongers, which had already been modified. It had already been modified because what we bought was a set of SBQ, single person quarters, that the previous owners had already renovated and already ripped out a couple of bathrooms. So what we've done is
please obey all traffic regulations.
You speeding?
Oh, I went down a hill.
You went down a hill. She's very annoying. What's this guy doing? Anyway, yeah. So yeah, good recap. Really good recap.
I think phase two, we've left it. We've got it to a point which I'll call a workable shell.
Yep.
I think for me, even though it's not my house and I don't live there,
But you have a wing named after you.
I'm interested to see it go from a shell to a house.
It's not a house.
Fully.
It's a home.
A home to be fully finished, painted, all your furniture in there, something that you can just sit down and enjoy.
Have a cup of tea.
Have a cup of tea, have a beer, enjoy for however long it is that this becomes your project. But I think it's exciting for you guys, from being so heavily invested in work from a commercial point of view to now starting phase two of your life, which is slowing down a little bit. You got plenty of things to tinker on up there. There's new trades, new skills that you're going to learn because you've got time to do it. You've got time to learn how to do it.
It's a shame you didn't see my skills operating that.
I saw your painting skills, and you've got work to do. But you know, got to start somewhere. It's like when we turned up, we didn't have much to work with, but we worked on it, and you know, we've ended up with a pretty good result. So I'm assuming that, you know, fixing the belts on the ride-on lawnmower so they don't keep falling off every 10 metres.
Just, you know, you were chatting about, you mentioned the tradies. So we actually met our first cranky person that lives in Carnarvon, which was the guy at the tip. Not our fault, we were just following instructions. But other than that one cranky fella that suggested that we were dropping rubbish off at the wrong location at a rubbish tip. You know, all the tradies and everyone else that we met, from Craig down to the hardware store, just everybody, they were so friendly and forthcoming with, you know, even fishing spots. You know, to give us that, you know, fishing spot 10 k's offshore where we got the we call those, you know, three snapper and that 82 centimetre, you know, mulloway. And by the sound of it, by talking to the locals, those big pods.
Who caught the mulloway?
Oh yeah, I caught the mulloway.
Oh, is that how? Because that's how you remember how long it was, right?
Correct.
Yeah. The snapper that I caught.
You caught the biggest snapper.
Yeah. How long was it? See what I'm saying? You remember your fish, but not other people.
I'm gonna go as far as that was 46 centimetres.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty close.
Yeah.
That's my memory.
Yeah. No, it was 43.
Was it 43?
Yeah. It was 43.
I knew it was 40 something. Are you sure it was 43?
43.
No, that was the smaller ones because you anyway, you caught two of them. You caught
anyway. Even going fishing was a challenge. Not only was building a home a challenge, but going fishing was a challenge.
Let's step through that little chestnut. so yeah, that was an interesting and disappointing in that, you know, I'd asked my long-term mechanic and his team to ensure that every inch of my boat and trailer was northwest ready.
Yeah.
I asked them to replace, because I was still working before we left Perth, to replace, you know, the bilge pump to a floating bilge pump, to even just to check the bearings. Like, I asked them to go over it with a fine-tooth comb to get to Carnarvon, and the sounder not working. So that was a challenge, and what we learned that after a couple of hours of troubleshooting, and me being as nimble as I am, being upside down with a headlamp on, trying to find something that I don't know what I was looking for, taking it to the mechanic Craig from Craig's Marine, another really nice guy. We got around some wires and said, "Oh, looks like we found your loose wire." So then all of a sudden the echo sounder started working, which is great. And then actually putting the boat in the water.
But that was while the boat was in the shed.
Yes, that was all.
We hadn't even got out of the shed.
That's right. And then when we actually go to our fishing trip, reversing the boat down into the water and ready to go, all aboard, and the motor wouldn't turn over, and we were convinced that we had a flat battery, and
put the boat back on the trailer.
Had to drive all 4 kilometres back to home, rip the battery out, take it to an automotive shop, where to be told that the battery was fine.
No, you've missed out the part.
Which bit have I missed?
You missed out the part. We took it back to the palatial palace because we had a jump starter there. Because
yes,
that was in the shed,
yes,
not in the car where the boat was.
Correct. Yes.
So then we
ginned around that for half an hour.
Well, we took that out of the box because that had never been used.
Yeah.
Then we had to Google it because we couldn't work out how to use it. Then we decided, no, the batteries had it. So then it was off to Repco, take the battery out of the boat.
Yeah.
Inside, only for the guy to tell us the battery was fine.
What's wrong with this battery, mate? This battery's good.
So it's off to Craig's Marine again.
It cost me another carton of beer.
Another carton of beer. Craig, who wasn't happy to see us because he's got more work than he knows what to do with.
Yeah.
But we had a fish. So this was now about an hour and a half after we first set off to go fishing.
Yeah.
Battery back out again. Terminals off. Dirty terminals.
And this is the boat that I had serviced by my
full
front to back.
Yeah, front to back, head to toe.
Yeah.
Don't miss a thing.
Paul the Gumby mechanic. Make sure I just get up there, turn the key, and it goes.
Yeah.
But look, ironically, the dirty terminals wasn't the cause of the motor not starting.
No.
So.
But it should have been checked.
It should have been checked. However, what we were also, while they were servicing my boat in Perth before I came north, I asked them to replace the fuel gauge because it had a sticky needle.
Yeah.
So they had more wiring to touch. And what we learned is that they'd actually forgotten.
Disconnected.
They disconnected the power lead from the motor to the battery, to the power source. So that's why it was just hanging around. It wasn't connected at all to the battery. So that was probably when 2 hours in the hole as far as we should be fishing.
Yep.
Until Craig just turns his head and holds up the little connection and says, well, no chance your motor's going to start without this thing being connected to the battery, brother.
Yeah.
So clearly whoever had done the electrical work on my boat at my boat mechanic workshop
disconnected a lot of things.
Disconnected it, didn't put it back, or ginned around with wires.
You know, like you used to pull your push bike to bits when you were younger?
Yeah.
Thinking I can do this?
Yeah.
Put it all back together and you've got 5 parts still in your hand and you don't know where they belong?
Yeah.
I think that's probably what happened.
Yeah, so that was a bit of a challenge, but we ended up catching some fish, which was kind of cool. And
No. Remember we set off, going out the channel markers, and I said, what speed are you doing? And what did you say to me?
I don't recall, Stephen.
The speedo doesn't work now.
Oh, that's right. But then it did start working.
But 5 bumpy waves later, it came back on again.
And halfway out to the mark we were given, we lost our GPS.
Lost it. So I'm thinking there's probably more loose wires somewhere.
Yeah. So Craig, we're going to book the boat back into Craig. We're going to book the boat back into Craig in 2 months because that's how long you got to wait to get to sea, unless it's an emergency, you know.
But we caught fish. We ate good.
What about the NBN experience? That was so. Let's recap that as an example. So I remember saying to you, so the NBN date's booked.
Yep.
I have taken the council over the telephone with our provider, our chosen provider, and they have stepped me through what's going to happen. So the provider comes out on behalf of NBN, walks up to the building and says, well, I can't do anything here today, mate. And I remember just saying to you before he got there, this is there's a curveball coming here because this is not an area that I'm comfortable with.
And it all was going too smooth.
It was all going too smooth.
Until someone turned up.
He rocked up and said, well, I can't do anything. He pretty much turned on his heels and drove away because I hadn't run the service to where the router was going to be situated, which that connects to the NBN box. So I called him back and I said, well, mate, thanks very much for turning away and saying you can't do. What do I have to do? And he explained. I said, well, his name's Deep, who actually also he also owns a taxi business in Narvan town. And he said, oh mate, for $150 I'll fix it. I said, well, just come back and fix it. And he goes, I'm busy now. I've cancelled an NBN job. I'm off to the next one. Yeah. And then reaching out to NBN via the service provider. NBN, their booking system was down for 4 days. So they couldn't book Deep in to come back and do the connection, which means that Deep wouldn't come back. He wanted to do the cable from the router first, which is the way it's supposed to operate, but the way it's supposed to flow. Cable from the house where you want the router back to the box, then they bring the box in and they connect it. So that's first. The provider never told me that, so that was a bit of a, not that that's a deal breaker, but it was definitely a speed bump.
Yeah. How many times did you ring NBN to try and get a booking?
4 times. 4 times on hold.
And at the end of each conversation, what did they tell you to do?
They told me to ring tomorrow. After being on hold for 30 minutes, you know, at least the provider came back to me and said, look, we're still working on this, Paul, but we don't understand, but we've lodged a ticket. Yeah. Is what they said, that we've lodged a ticket with NBN.
Can't do your NBN, but if you need a taxi, I can take you downtown.
So something else that I just recalled was my first bit of entertainment at Woolworths. I come back. So I'm standing at Woolworths doing my daily chores. The daily chores was going into town to either get some cash for the tradies or whatever the case may be. And you hear this fella quite robustly sharing with whoever would listen to him that he had more money than anybody in the Gascon because he comes from the Kimberley. And he walked up and down the front of Woolies. I'm going to say 3 times. The mall, if you like. And everybody stopped.
We'll loosely call it the mall.
And that was, for what it's worth, very funny. He wasn't harming anybody. He was just making everybody aware that he had more money than anybody else in the Gascon because he come from the Kimberley.
Yeah.
And he made sure that we all heard about it. The washing machine.
How many hours did it take to do the first load of washing?
We set it for 55 minutes and 3 hours later.
It was still in there.
Yeah, let's
couldn't open the door to get it out.
Let's reverse engineer the discussion. So it gave me great pleasure in rolling it off the trailer yesterday at the tip. You are right, the first 3-hour session, we kept getting this same error message, which meant that it was error 3 on a Hisense washing machine, meant that there was something blocked in the filter, so which meant that I had to disconnect the washing machine every time, take it out onto the patio, pull the filter out and release the water and find the blockage. We did that. We fixed it the first time, which was great, but then the second set of washing that we did, I found a pair, because our place was actually rented by 3 young ladies while we were still living in Perth before we moved up. And one of the bits of clothing that had lodged itself in the filter area of the washing machine was some underwear, albeit scantily underwear.
Yeah.
It was rather, you know, you probably could have used it for tooth floss if you really wanted to. Yeah. However, there was enough to jam the filter. So we have another crack at putting the washing machine on, and then it blocked again, and we found ice cream sticks.
$2 coin.
$2 coin and ice cream sticks had also jammed, so that had found its way down to found its way down to the filter, and then we had another one, an error 13, and that was all about we hadn't closed the door properly. And I'm telling you, mate, I if I didn't check that door, open it, turn the machine off, unplug it, plug it back in 5 times, I must have done it 10 times. So what we ended up doing is just
Putting it on a trailer.
putting the washing machine on the trailer and saying good riddance, because I think I'm going to say over the 2 or 3 washings that we did with the machine, I probably spent 5 or 6 good hours, wasteful hours, on trying to get it to work to wash our clothes. So turn the washing machine off, hanging out clothes on the line that don't have the same smell about them because they weren't rinsed properly. So yeah, the washing machine scenario was quite interesting. So we had the washing machine issue, we had the boat issue, which included the sounder and the motor, we had the NBN issue. So really it was pretty smooth sailing other than those 3 hiccups, really.
Yeah, well,
I can't think of anything else.
Well, I'm amazed at the wildlife around the palace. You know, the birds and the corellas and cockatoos, and we had a 28 parrot fly through the deck area yesterday, and
Won't be able to do that anymore.
so yeah, but probably my most memorable moment of the wildlife was, you know, obviously we're sleeping in a room in a house that has no power.
I know where you're going with this, yeah.
There's no power, so you know everything's done by a headlamp, and turn your phone on and turn your torch on, and anyway,
You suffered a bit of insomnia while you were there.
we go down, we get some bread, you know, we're going to have a bit of toast in the morning. A couple of days later we find out there's a hole in the bag. So half our bread's missing, we've got mice, we think. Alright. So that night I'm in bed, sleeping away. At early hours of the morning, I had a mice bite me on the finger, which
You bit me, you bastard!
scared
Please obey all traffic regulations.
scared the living bejesus out of me. But
Like me, huh?
next day off to Woolies again, get three little mice traps, or 2 little mice traps, set them up, put them down, walk out the door, sit down, next thing snap, get the first mice, get another one that night, get another one the next day, didn't see another mice after that.
Got 3, dude. Got 3.
Ended up getting 3 mice, but so getting bitten on the finger while I'm asleep by a mouse that's a memorable one. The tradies enjoyed that little story. They'd never heard of that before, but they'd probably never lived in conditions like that before either. So
What about the Chinook helicopter hitting in the forehead?
yeah, so that was, what was that, Wednesday night or something? Couldn't sleep. 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning, pitch black. We had lights, but Paul was asleep, so I didn't turn the lights on.
Snoring for Australia.
Grab my phone, open my phone, light comes on, that attracts some big moth, friggin' hits me right in the middle of the forehead while I'm looking at my phone. So I even had to turn my phone off because it was attracting the moth, so
Yeah, good times, good times.
it was good.
Bloody hell, a Chinook helicopter's just run into my forehead.